on board the Polperro, one of the oldest charter boats on Victoria's Port Phillip Bay, heading towards the historic town of Sorrento. I'll be retracing the steps of William Buckley, an English convict whose story of survival inspired a popular Australian phrase. And along the way, I'll be marking the journey by dropping into as many craft beer breweries as I can. Plus, I'll be getting to meet a bunch of local legends. We're now making the exact same approach William Buckley made way back in 1803, to the shores of Sullivan Bay. And this is where our epic adventure of heroes, history and hops kicks off. 227 kilometres, one incredible story. I'm Matt Stewart, and this is the Beer Pioneer.
He's out there, somewhere, crossing country, north to south, east to west, following rainbows for the liquid pot of gold. The man is amber obsessed. He's conquering fears, drinking boutique beers, just for you and me. He's a man on a mission, a liquid dietitian, a bearded brewery magician. Ah, he's the beer pioneer. He is the beer pioneer. He's the beer pioneer. He's the admiral of cheer. He's the admiral of cheer. He is the amber cavalier. He's the amber cavalier. And he's the malted musketeer. He's the malted musketeer. He is the bevvy buccaneer. He's the bevvy buccaneer. Oh yes, he is the beer pioneer. Oh yes, he is.
It's early morning and I'm kicking off my historic brewery tour from Sorrento Pier. It was on this small peninsula that William Buckley, convicted of stealing a piece of cloth, was destined to serve out his time as a convict at the Collins settlement. So before I start my pub crawl, let's have a look at where William Buckley's incredible journey in Australia began. I'm here at Sullivan's Bay, the original landing place of William Buckley all those years ago. As I walk along, I can't help but wonder what he must have found here in 1803. Certainly not this idyllic beach paradise I find today. Was the Akubra and Dryzerbone too much? Well, it wasn't my idea, but I reckon I pulled it off. Anyway, despite what seemed like the perfect location for a settlement on the surface, the residents of Collins Settlement quickly realised its shortfalls. Barren soil, brackish water, life was tough. After just a couple of months, most of the 300 convicts at the settlement began to prepare their escapes. Yet only one man would succeed. A few hundred metres from Sullivan's Bay is the Visitors Centre. And I'm here with maybe the biggest expert in the field, Keith. Hey Keith, how's it going?
Oh, thank you for that. Very good.
Keith, I played it down to be honest.
Good.
It's a real honour to be chatting with you.
Good.
Keith volunteers at the Visitors Centre on weekends and he's the perfect person to ask what happened here back in 1803.
The first British settlement in Victoria in August 1803 and only lasted till April 1804.
So it was a tough time basically.
Yes, well, their main problem was lack of fresh water. They did stick barrels in the sand near here and they could get a bit of water seepage, but some said it wasn't much different to seawater, and that was their real trouble.
Collins decided to abandon the site and move the settlement to present-day Hobart. And in the meantime, William Buckley had taken off.
Oh, well, William Buckley, a number of convicts had tried to escape, but mostly they just died in the bush.
It was late in the evening of the 27th of December that Buckley and two other men made their escape. This would be the last time he would ever see the Collins settlement. Upon his escape, it was thought to be so unlikely that he would survive that he was considered to be almost certainly dead. If the saying that he later inspired had already been coined, they probably would have said he had Buckley's chance of survival, which of course he did, as he was Buckley, and what chance would he have, if not his own? Many years later, the colloquial phrase, "you've got Buckley's chance," was coined off the back of the Buckley legend, and is used today to signify zero to no likelihood of success. If you were thinking that this is the type of story that should be turned into an opera, then I'm way ahead of you. I'm catching up with Anthony, who wrote and performed an opera about William Buckley. What brought you to writing an opera about William Buckley?
Right here. I'd come back from Europe where I'd had my singing career, settled here in Rye, not far away, and came down to visit the settlement, was fascinated by the history.
Amazing. How long did it take you to develop it and get it to performance stage?
Took us about 5 years.
Yeah.
Just let it happen, let it develop. And then I had to find a really good director. That was David Lampard was his name, and it was a very big job.
You know, I'm not an opera singer, but I do sing to myself in the car. Maybe could you give me a little quick lesson?
So the trick with opera singing, we don't use microphones,
okay,
is to find the resonances. If you go for an M hum, you can wake up these resonances. Then you go for an N hum, and the vibrations really start occurring up here, right? Then you go for an NG hum, and you bring the back of the head into the resonances, and then you're able to produce a voice which will fill any theatre.
That made me feel something.
Very smooth. Impressive. Yeah, you picked it up very quickly.
Oh, stop it, Anthony. I know, it might be cheeky to ask, but would you be up for giving us a little bit?
I've got a very scratchy voice. I won't be able to give it a good impression, but for example, when they've arrived here, they're all tied up, and Collins comes in, and Buckley is infuriated that he should be brought to Australia in the first place. So he goes something like, "I do not deserve to be here. I was arrested for stealing 2 pieces of Irish cloth worth but 8 shillings and was sent off to New South Wales."
I feel like I was just transported into the theatre.
He was transported.
He was transported as well.
I'm a Cheshire man born of farming.
Sitting here listening to Anthony's beautiful voice, I can't help but think my journey has only just begun, and I could really use a beer. I'll catch you after the break. After William Buckley escaped from Collins Settlement, he made his way up Port Phillip Bay, running for 4 hours before stopping for a break. I've got plenty of stops on my brewery crawl around the bay, and first up is Two Bays Brewing, one of the only dedicated gluten-free breweries in the country. So a word of the wise, don't rock up all lathered in gluten, you'll be refused entry. And to be honest, it'd be a pretty weird thing to do anyway. First up, a little chat with founder Richard.
You know, I got diagnosed with celiac disease about 5 years ago, and I just used to love craft beer and felt I was missing out for a number of years, and then I decided to do something about it.
Before I take a look around, Richard's got something planned for me at the bar.
This is our millet, which is budgerigar seed, so you want to taste some of that. We've got 14 different millet malts, so we can do all sorts of stuff from...
That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's really sort of nice and nutty.
Yeah.
This is the buckwheat, and then we have rice. So we have about 6 different rice malts.
You combine these, maybe feel sultanas, that's a breakfast muesli, I reckon. And this is where head brewer Christian comes in. Christian, Richard was kind of asking if I can help you out a little bit. You have to...
We actually need your help today.
Okay, so, really? Yeah. Oh my God, okay. In there. This is my big chance. I hope I don't muck it up. What a place to work. It's the factory of dreams. I mean, I've never heard of a lentil beer before.
Lentil beer is definitely a new thing, but we're still doing, you know, passion fruit sours, double IPAs, heaps of cool stuff like that.
Yeah,
so.
Awesome.
Rice brewing is actually pretty common. If you know Japanese lagers, Chinese lagers, a lot of Asian lagers use rice to lighten the mouthfeel of their beer. But buckwheat and millet are probably less common.
Had buckwheat pancakes.
Were they good?
Yeah.
Well, let's hope the beer's good as well, I guess.
Oh yeah, fingers crossed.
Everything we do is done very similar to how a regular brewery does it. It doesn't have gluten in it, then it's taken out later. There's no enzymes to pull the gluten out. It's all a raw malted grain, and it has to be mashed in a very similar way to a regular barley mash.
Right.
Some of the challenges we face across all our beers is that the natural enzymes that are in the malt aren't always in the malt for us.
I reckon that's the thing that a lot of beer drinkers don't realise.
Don't understand. Yeah.
It's the enzymes.
Enzymes
are important.
That's right, yeah. Exogenous enzyme mashing, they call it.
Yeah, exogenous enzyme mashing.
Yeah. We have in this tank a passion fruit sour, the Pulp Fusion.
Sort of like, you're on a new frontier kind of.
Definitely. This is real beer pioneering.
Exactly. All right, ease up, Christian. There's only one beer pioneer here. Time to get involved. First up with some millet.
So this is a Munich millet.
Am I allowed to touch it?
Please, you can eat some.
Oh yeah? Yeah, right, it is tiny.
It's a tiny grain, which has some practical limitations, but out of all the grains we use, this tastes the most similar to a barley grain.
Right.
So it does have a kind of sort of pea flavour to it.
It tastes good.
Tastes good.
I'd eat this.
You'd eat
I
that?
mean, I am eating this.
And it goes through the same malting process that barley does.
It does taste like pea.
So we're going to mill the grain the same way you would barley malt, and the principles are the same. We want to open the grain up, but we don't want to pulverise the husk.
Right.
Because the husk does help in that natural filtration process in the water tun, yeah.
Oh, cool. So lifting it up, chucking it in, and then the machine does its business?
Yep, but we've got about 400 kilos to mill, so it's going to take you a while. Literally never happened in the history of the mill.
Never happened in the history of the mill. Everything's fine, I swear. Next job. It's time to add the passion fruit to the passion fruit sour. Where's it going in? In that little hole.
You have to open that,
Yeah.
get that over that as quickly as possible, and that's going to squirt everywhere.
Why am I doing this? This feels like a stitch-up. Is it a twist or just pop?
Pull real hard. We've got 8 bags to do. Step up. Hey!
Is that what you were expecting?
He nailed it. Then you got to
Man, that smells beautiful.
tilt the bag up and just squeeze out all the passion fruit.
Nailed it. Not a bad way to start the day, and now I continue my epic journey, a whole 800 metres up the road to Jetty Road Brewery, a brand taking over shelves all over Australia. We're at Jetty Road Brewery and I'm here with the main man, Blake. Hey Blake, how's it going? Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming down.
Should we have a look?
Let's do it.
It's a great space, and there's even an upstairs shuffleboard room and a stage. But I want to look behind the curtain and maybe help justify being in a brewery at 11 a.m. All right.
Come through to the stainless steel jungle.
Blake started homebrewing when he was 16. All I was doing at 16 was being the coolest guy at school and picking up heaps of babes. So how does it all work?
All of our beer, made from barley, malt and wheat. It starts up on the malt floor. If you think about malt as toast, or all the way from white bread through to burnt toast, that's where you get the different flavours and colours from.
Right. Once you've set your toast preference, the grain is milled so that water can get in.
Water converts the complex starch into simple sugar. Yeast eats sugar, makes alcohol. So essentially that's how it starts. This is where we have, it's called mashing, which is where the barley malt enters.
Water converts this to sugar. Then it goes to the kettle where the hops are added.
So we're talking hectolitres, which is 50 hec or 100 hec.
Yeah, I'd talk in hectolitres too. Yeah, I've definitely heard that term before and use it all the time.
So once we're knocking beer out at that cooler temperatures for pitching yeast, it comes down to our cellar. So
Yeah.
this is where the 5,000 litre and 10,000 litre tanks are. This here is 10,000 litres of draft, which is our house lager.
Right.
This has 5,000 litres of a blueberry sour beer, 400 kilos of blueberry in that tank.
How much?
400 kilos of blueberry.
I don't even know. I can't pick. That's a lot of blueberries.
Time for a good old-fashioned tank taste.
This is our first beer that we released, our flagship, our Jetty Road Pale. It's definitely our most popular beer and probably the most obviously the most brewed beer as well. So
Yeah, right. It's like drinking straight out of the udder.
it doesn't get much fresher than this, mate. This is going straight into cans tomorrow. So you probably get a little bit of like sort of passion fruit, kind of tropical notes.
How much of your day is drinking beer?
I try to make it as much as possible, but unfortunately it's usually kind of about 5 o'clock on a Friday.
Right. Oh, right. Yeah. Okay.
We do sort of tank testing and all that sort of stuff, but up until this point, it's not exactly the nicest thing to drink.
Right.
And if you want to do a drink in the wink then?
A drink and a wink.
Not sure if I quite nailed that wink. Okay, what am I doing? Off to the bar, and I'm moving up to the IPA, Blake's go-to beer.
Quite nice tropical fruit aroma.
Yeah.
It's still got a fairly lean malt base, but unlike a pale ale, there's a little bit more of that character there for a bit of sweetness, a bit of...
Yeah. What is that fruit that I'm tasting?
It's sort of like
It's almost like passion fruit.
guava and melon sort of stuff.
That's what I was meaning.
If you taste passion fruit, then that's what...
But it is guava. As soon as you said it. Damn it. Oh, guava. Should have known. Damn. I'm gonna be by the end of these. I'll be napping in about an hour and a half, I reckon.
There's a huge range, and I'll be honest, I drank most of them, but we've got plenty more to go. See you after the break. I'm sailing into Sydney, and this is where old William Buckley thought he was heading all those years ago. Unfortunately, he missed the mark by about 1,000 kilometres, ending up somewhere near Geelong. Hang on, I don't know how to drive a boat. Even though Buckley never quite made it here, that doesn't mean I can't take a little detour from his path. And I've got an hour left on this boat rental, so I'm making the most of it. While I'm in town, I might as well check out one of the iconic forerunners of Australia's craft beer scene, the Lord Nelson Brewery Hotel. The Lord Nelson is Sydney's oldest continually licensed hotel, and I'm going to meet the founder and publican, also a real character, Mr. Blair Hayden. I'm at the Lord Nelson Brewery Hotel with the great man Blair. What a pleasure to be in your acquaintance, if I'm saying that right.
Well, indeed. Well, I don't know if acquaintance is what you're looking for. But,
That's a good start, Matt. Well done. This place goes back to like 1835?
1841 it was
Okay.
first licensed, but you're right. It was built initially as a residence, and the merchant that built the house saw the light and turned it into a hotel or a pub in those days. And in 87 we put a brewery in and made it the Lord Nelson Brewery Hotel, the oldest existing brewery in Australia now.
There's a great range here, and Lord Nelson was one of the forerunners of the modern ale with a hoppy twist. The pub, not the old English man.
And it was about giving herbaceous flavours when they weren't supposed to be there. So in the early days when 3 sheets arrived, the hop we used was a floral hop, and people would walk in the door and say, well, what's this shit? And we said, well, actually, this is what you get from making natural ales. But really, I guess we were sort of 20 years ahead of our time.
But Blair had the foresight and stuck to his guns.
Natural ales, they alter. Like a wine, vintage will alter. And that's the exciting thing about making ales to me. A lot of people misunderstood, I think, what we were doing in the beginning. Now we see the craft brew scene as being extremely exciting, innovative and advanced, and that's what's so exciting about what we're doing now. This hotel's all about conversing. So you meet, you talk to your friends, you get on. So now I get guys on and say, Dad introduced me to this place, and it's still an institution for him, as it is for me, and as it will be for the next person. And what I try to maintain is that it never changes, but it does. It evolves, but you walk back and you go, it's just the same as I saw it last time. You know, the brass is always polished. You've been dirtying it up. We're very proud that this pub was called Lord Nelson. Horatio Nelson was a very famous sea captain.
Having lost an eye and an arm in battle, Lord Nelson fought to his death in the Battle of Trafalgar, often regarded as Britain's greatest naval victory. Ah, history. That reminds me, this show's about William Buckley, sort of. Let's get back on his trail around Port Phillip Bay with a stop in Bad Shepherd in Cheltenham. I used to live just down the road when I was younger. There was no Bad Shepherd back then, or any craft breweries for that matter. First, I'm meeting Craig, the head brewer.
Do you mind showing us around a bit?
No, absolutely, mate. Come on through. This is our canning line. We decided to move our core range of beers from bottles into cans.
Yep.
They're a lot better for the quality of the beer, so they don't let in any UV light. They're better from a transport perspective. They're a lot lighter.
Plus, you can bring cans into festivals, then crush them on your head in a show of strength.
It's a bit of action over here.
Yeah, so we're just finishing up a brew day at the moment.
While I'm here, I might as well pitch in, so it's time to do some very important and highly sophisticated work.
Matt, I thought we might put you to work today and get you to give us a hand shoveling out some spent grain.
All right. It's not exactly what I had in mind, but work is work and, you know, it's just nice to be involved.
What is this we're pulling out here?
So this is the spent grain from the brew.
Yep.
So the grain sits in the mash tun for about an hour. So the enzymes that are naturally found in the malt convert the starches to sugars.
Right.
So at different temperatures, different enzymes are more active, creating different types of sugars depending on what kind of beer we're making.
Did you get all that? Because I certainly did.
And then at the end of the brew, this is what we're left with, a bunch of soggy grain.
Right, and what happens to the soggy grain from here?
We've got a farmer that comes and collects it, and he feeds his cows.
Oh, his cows, I thought you were going to say his family. Yeah, right.
Well, I think his cows are part of his family, so...
Oh, this feels good. Am I nailing it?
Mate, you're smashing it.
Want to see me do this from 10 different angles?
It smells nice.
Especially when we're brewing beers like our hazelnut brown.
This is relaxing. Getting a full body workout. I feel like I'm toning my side oblique.
Did we overshoot this scene? Maybe. Did I get roped into doing manual labour? Sure. But did I oddly enjoy it? Yes, I did.
All right, all done. I reckon that's good to go. So yeah, get another thing going.
Just whip it up.
But enough shenanigans. Derek, who founded Bad Shepherd with his wife Dee Dee, has a special creation for me to try.
Have you ever drunk peanut butter before?
I can't believe it's taken this long to get peanut butter and beer together.
And there's actually no peanuts in there.
Oh right, how do you make that happen?
Hazelnuts.
Hazelnuts, of course.
So it keeps the allergens out of the system. We do add vanilla as well, and then a lot of chocolatey, crystally malt. So, but it gives the impression.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So yeah,
Science, huh?
Yeah. There's actually a secret ingredient in there too, which I'll never share. But we worked very hard at it.
Is it love?
You've got it. So.
Oh, this is so nice.
And there's not just beer here, so I'll cap off my stay with a feed.
This one all right?
Yeah, fantastic, thank you.
No problem.
I'll have a little tipple. Port Barrel Russian Imperial Stout.
2018.
2018, a fine vintage. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
After the break, it's off to Melbourne. Our next stop around Port Phillip is Melbourne. Melbourne wasn't established till 1835, so Buckley probably would have been greeted by a different view as he made his way around this part of the bay. Today I'm meeting world-renowned chef Mark Olive for an insight into the kind of native foods Buckley might have encountered in the area.
Mark, what a pleasure to be down here at the South Melbourne Market. When I'm cooking, I normally do it in a more private sort of locale, but it's nice for the people to finally get to see what I can do. What are we doing today? You're going to teach me how to do something cool?
Yeah, something different, something with Indigenous herbs and spices and stuff you'll find around Melbourne here.
Today we're cooking a kangaroo stir fry with some veggies from the market as well as some native greens.
But I'm going to also put through some warrigal greens. Now the warrigal greens are very different, very unique. You'll find them a lot down here in Victoria, but also up around New South Wales, up along the coastal regions there.
These greens would have been a valuable food source for Buckley.
And all the convicts, they were all scurvied up, getting sick. They found this stuff, full of vitamin C, great folate, and but it's a toxin as well. It's got a toxin through it.
Right.
Best way to get rid of this toxin is just to boil it in a bit of water, or you just fry it out. So sustainable stuff, really, really meaty as well. Munch on a bit of that.
This one you've just told me is toxic.
Yeah.
Okay. First, we're prepping the vegetables.
How's your peeling going? You're a bit slow, aren't you?
Yes, I mean in so many ways, yes. You've been cooking for decades. Hey, when did you get into it?
78.
78?
That's when I started my
A good
apprenticeship.
year. Bloody hell.
Did my apprenticeship and I was the first Indigenous person on the Illawarra coast, where I grew up, to actually come out with a degree in food.
Right.
And not only that, along the way I've been able to teach other Indigenous kids, get them into the industry, show them what it's all about.
This is harder than it should be. How have I done? Is that acceptable?
No, you're pretty bad. Clean up. Okay, so the carrot, I'm just going to julienne these.
Oh, yeah. I was going to suggest a julienne.
Yeah.
Which, of course, is just like a sideways chop.
Yeah, really.
Which is also one of my favourite dance moves.
How does that go?
I mean, I've made it up, but if I was going to commit to the bit, I guess something like this. but I wouldn't commit to that. Damn it, why didn't I commit to the bit?
Got just a little bit of garlic we're going to put with it as well.
You know, you can just put some garlic on the stove and people in the house will be like, oh, that smells good. Like, yeah, everything else is burnt, but there's some garlic on the stove.
So, look, I'll show you a brunoise.
A brunoise?
A brunoise.
So like...
Yep.
Thicker than that?
Yeah. Best way to hold a knife is like that. You've got to get that V with your finger, just like that. You don't clutch it, so you're sort of like, you know, it's just nice and easy.
Yeah.
Now just start doing that. This should never leave the board.
Okay.
So you're pushing forward all the time. Now with this side, it's always good to hold them like that. Now put your hands like that. Okay, so you've got that.
I want to chop a finger off, aren't
Now, what you're doing is you're pushing forward. Don't bring it up any higher, you don't do that. It's just, that should never leave.
Right.
The 3 fingers at the back are holding that, guiding those through.
Oh.
And the thumb is anchoring all of that. So you're anchoring all of that.
Yeah.
So it's just basically shimmy back with your fingers, and then you've got a nice brunoise, which is a nice dice.
Right. I don't, like you're doing 3 things at once. I don't understand how you're able to do that. Probably 43 years of experience helps.
Oh, well, it's coordination.
Okay. Oh, all right. All right, harsh but fair.
See that fillet, that tail fillet, really nice. Look how lean it is. So we're just going to clean it just a little bit. Take that sinew off.
A bit more chopping and a little local bush tomato seasoning.
You do the marination.
All right. Playing to our strong suits here. I can sprinkle with the best of them. And now we're ready to fry. Look at that. We're having a few issues with the stove, but this just shows how good Mark Olive is. He can even cook when the stove doesn't work. So you're saying in an ideal world, the stovetop would remain on while you're cooking?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm learning a lot today.
Now,
wow, so it cooks quickly though.
That does cook quickly, and you don't want to overcook kangaroo either.
Right.
Okay, so with that, onion. You can see that mixing through that. We're adding colour now.
Yep.
So that. Look at all that colour. Look at the colours and the flavour in that. Put the relish over that so you can use it yourself.
Yep.
Stir that through.
All right, let's eat.
This is it, the kangaroo stir fry. This is with the bush tomato relish.
Yep.
This is with the pepperberry. What we do now is we just mix all of that sauce through the flavour.
I basically made this.
You made it.
Yeah. Thanks so much for helping me make this dish. Oh yeah, that's yum.
It's nice, isn't it?
Oh, it's been great hanging out. Thanks so much for teaching me all these things. It's been a real pleasure. Cheers, Mark. Cheers. Cheers. Alright, now we're done with Melbourne, we move on. I'm at Buckley's Falls, named for old William Buckley, who spent a lot of time around these parts when he was in the wilderness, as we retrace his steps around Port Phillip Bay. I've made my way through Geelong to check out the Barwon River, where Buckley spent most of his time in the bush. For almost 3 decades, he called the Barwon River system home. I'm at the Barwon River where old mate William Buckley used to go fishing for eels and other such things, getting himself sustenance in those many years in the wilderness. With a small log-covered hut, access to plenty of bream in the river, and yam daisy in the ground, it was Buckley's skill of trapping bream and helping feed his adopted tribe that led him to finding a wife. Well, if fish catching skills is what leads to marriage, there's probably a line of prospective brides banging on my door right now. Time to head out on the pier and meet cricketing legend Merv Hughes and his mate Squiz, and take it all in. That's not a bad spot for a fish, the Barwon.
Yeah, it's a great spot. So obviously beach just around the corner, so tidal influence. You'd think there'd be bream, flathead, probably salmon, so Australian salmon.
So there's a bit of everything.
Oh, yeah. You look pretty comfortable there.
Look, I'm here for the relax more than anything, and just to be hanging out with a legend, really.
Yeah, no, Squizzy is a bit of a legend.
Yeah, thanks, mate.
How did you
Merv's not
meet
bad
Squizzy?
either.
Through the cricket, we used to go up to Darwin a fair bit. Squizzy was tied up with cricket up there, and soon found out that we had common interests, like drinking beer and fishing.
It wasn't cricket, was it? I was no good at it.
Yeah.
Who's the better fisherman, Squizzy?
There's no doubt about that.
Thanks, Squiz.
The beer drinking goes hand in hand with fishing?
Oh, goes together like peas and carrots, doesn't it?
That's
Peas
it.
and carrots.
Yeah. Now, you go away for a fishing trip and you have a look at, like, we go away for 2 nights and the amount of grog they take. And you say to Squizzer, we got it up, we can always bring it home. We can always bring it. And you think, well, that's a great theory, isn't it? So you never want to run out.
I know he's a cricketing legend and I haven't brought up cricket yet, just give me a bloody chance. You know he's a childhood hero of mine. Let me figure it out, I'll get onto it. It was here on the Barwon River that William Buckley tells tales of spotting several bunyip, or bunyips, whatever the plural is. These mystical creatures were said to lurk near rivers, creeks and other waterholes. Buckley's sightings were frequent, and he was convinced of the creature's supernatural powers. I've only been here for a couple of hours and all I've spotted is a bloody Hall of Fame cricketing legend, whom it could be said had the supernatural power of delivering a crippling Yorker.
Oh, that's Mayor's office right there.
I grew up watching you. You were like the legend of cricket
mate,
team, especially for a Victorian kid.
Yeah,
they didn't let many of us in.
Playing at the MCG, 60, 70, 80,000 people, the support we got was phenomenal.
Yeah. Fast bowling, that's got to be one of the most brutal things you can do in sport, right? Running in.
Yeah, well...
On your back and your shoulders and your...
As a physiotherapist once said, it's probably the most unnatural thing you do because your momentum's forward, then you're rocking back and twisting, so you problem with your knees, and then later on in your career, you just lose power through your shoulders.
Yep.
And once you do that, you lose your power into the crease, and just that little bit of pace that makes a difference.
You played 53 tests
53
for Australia,
tests, yeah.
212 wickets.
You're all over it.
The handy record.
Yeah.
Do you think that sometimes people, because you are like the larrikin yobbo sort of persona, that people forget you're a gun?
Mate, the times that I played, it sort of pales into insignificance when you play with Alan Border that played 140 tests. Matthew Hayden played 100 tests. Warney plays 120 tests, 100 plus test matches.
And it was all made official recently though. You're officially a legend now.
Oh, not a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
Look, I've got a bit ahead of myself.
No, mate, absolutely stoked with that. Like I got inducted at the MCG by Peter King, a bloke I played cricket with, had my family with me. And I'd known about it for 3 months and I thought, oh, the emotions are in check. And then they get you to say a few words and you start thinking about all the people that had helped me throughout my career, and it is quite overwhelming. So got quite emotional, to be honest. It was a huge thrill and a huge buzz.
Oh, that's great. You are, yeah, you would be a household name.
Only in my house. When there's no one else home.
I was thinking about this. You know, you don't hear of any Mervs or Mervins, and I think it's because you've taken that name for yourself. It's sort of like no one else is called Cher or
or like Beyonce or something. You know, this is who you are. You've taken it for yourself, and no one else can.
So Squares,
who wants it?
Squares, I'm now being compared to Cher and Beyonce. I'll rip her.
Put a ring on it.
The Barwon River teems with life. Worms, shrimp, crabs, eel and fish, not to mention abundant local bird life. It was a lifeline and an important food source for so many of the Indigenous people whose land it ran across. It was said that the surrounding river systems were once so full of eel, local tribes could stay fed for months.
So we're following the track of William Buckley, escaped convict, and this was his spot. He'd live off eels from the
Barwon River. We don't look like catching anything, do we, Squiz?
Not at the moment.
No.
Squiz, we're really relying on you to...
It's a bit like your William Buckley.
Yeah, we have to wait. We'll have to wait 30
Buckley's a nun,
years.
mate. Buckley's a bloody nun. We got it though.
As hard at work as Merv and I were fishing, it was Squiz that came through in the end.
Oh, Squiz.
Oh,
Squiz.
Yeah, no, I had someone there, mate. Strap me in. Record, world record, a big toady. Look at that.
Not quite enough to live on for 3 decades, but it's something.
So I'm starting to get a bit nervous that I don't have any bait on my line.
Probably a good idea to check the bait.
All right.
I'm tipping. Yeah, just a bit of weed, isn't it?
I've got a bit of weed.
Well,
hey?
happy days.
That's actually big. That's bigger than what Squizzy got.
Try that out.
Yep, I had no bait this whole time.
That's about the right length.
When you cast, all you got to do is hit the water.
Yeah, when you did it before, it looked so elegant. I don't know if I can sort of capture that.
Oh, mate, So that's the mayor's office right there. When you flick your rod, you've got to let the line go as it's going.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I'm clipping this back over?
Yeah, but later.
Later. Right, that's not...
Okay, so give yourself a bit of a, just...
Hold on to the rod though, don't let the rod go.
Don't let the rod go?
Yeah, that's all right. Just give it a flick, so.
Yeah,
drop it down. As you drop it over.
Yeah.
Let it go. Oh, mayor's office, Squares.
He's a natural.
Oh, he said he doesn't fish.
He is a natural.
Oh man, I felt so much pressure there. So glad I did not choke in front of the great Merv Hughes.
And then all you do, wind up the slack line.
Yeah.
Then we sit down and wait for another 15 minutes.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, how good's that?
It's been a real pleasure hanging out with you two.
Pleasure.
Probably let the cameras piss off and we'll hang out.
Oh, yeah,
with
without
you.
doubt.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Good luck with the show. Hope it goes well.
Thank you very much.
Buckley's time among the Wathaurong people was brief by comparison to the tens of thousands of years of history that preceded his arrival. The Barwon River and the surrounding lands have a rich history, and as the sun sets across the riverbanks, it allows for a brief moment of reflection.
Our journey around the beautiful Port Phillip Bay has been long and arduous. And I tell you what, if you haven't found me on the end of a bar, this is where you'll find me, on the back of a horse. Anyway, off we go. Giddy up. Here we go. Yeah! In your own time. Abe, do you want to... We'll edit this bit out, but if you lead her out a bit.
We've completed retracing Buckley's journey across the bay, but before we follow his path to Tasmania, there's one last stop at Victoria's surf coast. Buckley spent nearly 30 years in the harsh Australian bush. I really want to get a sense of what he felt, and what better way than on horseback. Were there horses around here back then? No, but there weren't charismatic beer show hosts around either, so let's not get bogged down in semantics. As I struck up a connection with these rough and rowdy creatures, I realised how symbolic they were of my journey. It was time to find my horse, or as some would say, for the horse to find me.
Probably one of your more fearsome horses. There you go. Oh, fucking hell. I am not flexible. Oh, Jesus. Feel all right? Horses first came out to Australia in 1788 on the first fleet. I wonder if old William Buckley ever wished he was travelling on horseback. Why use your 2 when you can use the horse's 4? That's what I always say.
There's 2 things you should know about me. I prefer a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy. And I also prefer a horse under me than an undersea horror me. Nah, that one doesn't really work. Scrap that last one.
What I love doing, getting out here in God's country out in the bush, get a bit of a mindset into how William Buckley would have felt. Just the isolation, you know, bit of time to yourself with nothing but your thoughts. I've been told I've been given one of the roughest and toughest horses around. What was her name again, Abe?
Oh, Bluebird.
Yeah, Bluebird. Big bad Bluebird. Honestly, there's no place I feel more comfortable than right here on the back of a horse. You'll see some people wearing helmets when they're riding, but when I was a kid, the only helmet we needed was a good bloody attitude and a bit of know-how. Cheers.
And on we go. Why? I'm not too sure. How this relates to William Buckley or beer is really anyone's guess, but we're here now, so let's bloody enjoy it.
What you got to remember is you're the boss when you're on top of one of these beasts. They'll do what you tell them to. She's having a fucking feed.
Bluebird, we got a show to do.
Pull her head up, Matt. Lean back a bit.
Bluebird.
Put your weight into it. Get up.
This is all well and good, but why aren't we at the bloody brewery? This is a show about beer, for crying out loud. What are we doing here?
You are a character, Bluebird.
Bluebird and I mutually came to the decision that it was time to get going, and the crew agreed. After a day of drinking and eating and riding horses, always go for a swim in the wild ocean. That's what my mum always said to me, so I'm hitting the beach. Okay, maybe not.
Just over there, over the mighty Bass Strait, is where old William Buckley's story continues. But before I head over to finish our epic adventure, I need a little spot of R&R.
All this beer and beach fun has taken its toll on me, so our caring producer has set me up with some relaxation time at a nearby retreat. He also signed me into a private yoga session for your amusement. It was pretty painful and I don't know if I want to relive it, so I'm off to Tassie for the last leg. I'll catch you after the break. In 1835, William Buckley emerged from the bush more than 3 decades after escaping the Collins convict settlement. The Europeans he approached at a camp were astonished he had survived. Later that year he was pardoned, and after a stint working as an intermediary between the colonies and the Wathaurong people, he packed up and sought retirement across the Bass Strait in Tasmania.
Our journey started in Sorrento, Victoria, and it ends here in Hobart, Tasmania. Just as it did for old William Buckley all those years ago. We're going to check out another great craft brewery, and we're going to have a look around this beautiful city of Hobart.
Just up from the waterfront is Buckley's last resting place, so let's go pay our respects. Obviously we don't have any footage of William Buckley's final leg, but luckily my film crew are documenting every step of my own. Did they overshoot this scene? Almost definitely. But after they insisted I do this walk again and again, and again and again and again, I insisted that they use every inch of the footage. This small park near Battery Point is his final resting place, so I'm hoping it provides a fitting spot to reflect upon all the ground both him and now myself have covered. Look at me go, bloody hell, I sure know how to do a walk. As this plaque describes, his incredible story is commonly believed to be the source of the phrase, "You've got Buckley's chance," which means you've got almost no chance. You got bloody Buckley's, mate. Buckley spent his latter years living in Battery Point, and after his death in 1856, was buried in the St George's Burial Ground, located at the rear of this small reserve.
Now I'm going to take a few moments to just soak in this peaceful ambience of Buckley's final resting place here in Hobart.
I can't help but wonder if this final resting place does justice to the man and his epic life. But if, like me, he finds the hum of 4 lanes of passing traffic relaxing, I reckon he'd like it here just fine. Back on Hobart's historic waterfront district, my last stop is Hobart Brewing Co, and it's looking like a great spot to finish. I'm catching up with Scott, the head brewer, to give me a rundown on the craft beer scene in Australia.
I have noticed, Scott, that you don't sound like you're from around here. What's your backstory?
Well, I'm married to an Australian. She grew up in Melbourne, and we both...
You say it like an Australian.
Yeah, well, we've been together long enough that, we first came to Tassie together nearly 20 years ago. And it actually reminds me of where I grew up in upstate New York. And so I fell in love with Tassie right away. I felt comfortable here. And
it's an amazing place.
Yeah, there's a rawness and a wildness here. And it's missing, over 350 million Americans. So that was a bit desirable as well. And
so since I've been interested in craft beer for the last however many years, people always say America's always about 10 or so years ahead. Do you think it's still like that?
No, I don't. When Kate and I first arrived in Tassie, there were maybe 100 breweries in Australia and like 7 or 8 in Tassie. And now I think that number is somewhere between 700 to 800. And Tassie has over 30 breweries. And the quality of the beer being brewed in Australia has risen, with some really big players like Stone and Wood and Balter, Four Pines, all Pirate Life, Mountain Goat, and certainly here, Moo Brew here in Tassie, they were kind of founded on that principle of quality and consistency. And I think on the last trip back to Colorado and California, we were a bit underwhelmed. Wow. And it wasn't that anything had dipped down there, it's just that everything here has just been getting better and better every year. And so the beer being brewed around Australia is on par with anywhere in the world.
Well, that's as good a segue as any for me to have a drink. Let's meet Alex at the bar for one last beer, their flagship Harbour Master Ale.
We call it a Tasmanian ale, brewed with hops grown just up the road in Bushy Park. Yeah, kind of a nice copper colour.
Yeah.
Brewed as a home brew, but then thought about what would a beer that was brewed in the early days of the brewing history in Tasmania, what would that be like?
Right, it does have like a kind of an old Englishy kind of style flavour to it or something.
Yeah, exactly. Biscuity malt character, little bit of hop.
Yeah, I can picture a convict drinking this.
Okay. Maybe we should steer clear of the whole convict reference here.
Oh, come on. Are we still sensitive down here about convict stuff? This whole show's following a convict around.
And I think that officially marks the end of my journey. So I'm heading up to nearby Mount Wellington, or Kunanyi, for some stunning views overlooking Hobart, where I can reflect on all the great memories I've made on this epic pub crawl.
So many great memories. Not personally, it's all a bit hazy for me, but luckily the cameras were rolling and I'll probably look over those tapes soon to refresh the memory. That's by the by, not really any of your concern. I really just want to tell you thanks for tuning in. Anyway, I've been Matt Stewart and this has been The Beer Pioneer. Catch you next time. Yeah, so there's a lot of self-loathing setting in mid-take, is that?
We're on board the Polpero, one of the oldest charter boats on Victoria's port. I'm full of love right now, and I can't wait for the episode to end so I can go and just give myself a hug. It's quite a weird way to, but...
So what you're doing is you're pushing forward. Don't bring it up any higher.
Here we are at Buckley's Rest. What a... Sounds like Hanoi or something.